Cultivating a desexualized mind and free of unproductive distractions is an act of self-discipline and courage. This does not mean repressing our desires, but transforming them and redirecting our energy toward higher and more meaningful goals. By facing and questioning the nature of our inclinations, we begin to understand that many of our thoughts are ultimately choices that we can change. Learning to discern between what is truly meaningful and what lacks value can be the first step toward personal liberation and the unleashing of your intellectual potential. The unrestricted access to pornography today has created a fascinating yet detrimental psychological phenomenon. Today, men can see naked women in intimate situations with just one click, without having to prove their worth or compete with other men in a social, physical, or emotional setting. This access creates an illusion of entitlement. The primitive brain deceives itself into thinking it has earned the right to enjoy these images when in reality, it has done nothing to deserve them. This phenomenon translates into a disconnection between reality and the expectations that men develop about their love and sexual lives. Historically, relationships between men and women were marked by a more rigorous selection process. To gain access to female intimacy, men had to demonstrate significant qualities. They had to stand out among other men, to be brave, to show courage in risky situations, to provide necessary resources, and in many cases, to establish real emotional connections. Competition was fierce, and natural selection played a crucial role. Thus, only a fraction of men would reproduce, while the others remained on the sidelines. Studies suggest that about 8,000 years ago, only 1 in 17 men had the opportunity to reproduce, an indicator of how selective the mating process was. Today, the situation has changed dramatically. Men access pornography and shape their preferences in a virtual world that presents them with an endless array of options they could never find in real life. This creates a distortion in what they consider desirable and attainable, distancing their perception of reality from what truly corresponds to their level in the sexual marketplace. Frequently, these men feel dissatisfied with the women available to them, as their brains have been programmed by images of perfect bodies and ideal situations. It is crucial to remember that the search for a partner is not solely based on physical attraction. Women, although they now have greater freedom to choose their partners, are still guided by ancestral instincts prioritizing safety and economic stability. The options they consider are based on their survival instincts. They seek men who can offer resources and protection, something essential for their well-being and that of future children. The expectation that an unattractive man with limited resources and without desirable characteristics can attract a woman who fits the ideal of beauty is, at best, an illusion. Today, an alarming number of men have shaped their sexual preferences in such a way that they seem to be based solely on physicality, and often, they are not even aware of the superficiality of these choices. They talk about their type with an almost disconcerting confidence. My type is a girl from Thailand, petite, with that body, or I'm attracted to Ukrainian girls with that particular charm. But when asked about the reason behind these preferences, their response is often unsatisfactory. It's just my type. The conversation continues, and when asked, do you have any real connection with this culture or these women? Most cannot answer. Perhaps they have exchanged fleeting glances with a few of these women on the street, but that is the extent of their experience. In many cases, their only references have been images and scenes from pornographic content, where they have seen these women in stereotypical and dehumanizing contexts. The only interaction they have had with these figures has been through the screen, where women are presented in a caricatured manner, without voice, history, or nuance. They in their ignorance, have assumed that this represents an ideal type of woman. Thus, they have reduced women to mere physical attributes, a vagina of a certain height, hair of a certain color, and deep down, they have stripped her of her humanity, turning her into an object meant to satisfy their biological desires. Yet, the background of this phenomenon is even more complex. Many of these men feel that their self-worth depends on being desired, and it is only those who have built solid self-esteem and possess personal achievements who seek an emotional connection. For the rest, desire has been replaced by consent, and this has extended the idea that as long as they obtain permission to touch and be touched, they have fulfilled their expectations. They settle for a routine in which the woman's participation is reduced to a simple act of acceptance, as if the mere fact of allowing someone to approach her body were enough to establish a connection. The problem is that these men, deeply influenced and often dependent on pornography, have disconnected from reality. Their ability to relate to real people has diminished, and sex has become a mechanical act, devoid of emotion or connection. In this context, they no longer face the complexity of interacting with another human being, with their flaws, virtues, stories, and world. Pornography has shaped their view of what intimacy means, distorting the very essence of human relationships. This disconnection not only affects how they perceive women, but also prevents them from growing and developing interpersonal skills. By avoiding the challenge of truly getting to know someone, they limit themselves to a superficial existence that does not allow them to mature in all aspects of their lives. Interactions that should enrich and help them grow are replaced by an emotional void and a superficiality that ultimately leaves them more alone and dissatisfied than ever. In the refuge of their solitude, a group of men gathers around their screens, where the cold light of technology illuminates their faces, trapped in virtual worlds that promise connections without the risk inherent in human bonds, without the risk of rejection, nor the need to develop any form of human skills, communication skills, or maturity. They are aware of their attachment to these digital spaces, but they deceive themselves by saying they are too busy, that their standards are too high, that they simply cannot find what they are looking for in real life. This self-deception becomes their mantra, but the reality is much darker and more complicated. These individuals become accustomed to superficial connections and the type of instant gratification offered by digital platforms. As their communication skills and social abilities are affected, so too is their emotional maturity. Although they are aware of their attachment to these virtual spaces, they engage in a self-deception game. They tell themselves that they are too busy to establish meaningful relationships, that their standards are too high, or that they simply cannot find what they are looking for in real life. This self-deception becomes their mantra, a way to justify their loneliness and their inability to connect authentically with others. Behind phrases like, "I'm alone because I work too much," or "I don't have time for a relationship," or "I can't find what I am searching for," lies a more painful truth: the addiction to the quick dopamine rush provided by pornography. They have grown accustomed to accessing images and fantasies of women who are out of their reach, yet they refuse to recalibrate their expectations and criteria to align with the reality of their lives. In the end, this disconnection becomes a vicious cycle. The pursuit of instant gratification leaves them devoid of the necessary skills to build real and satisfying relationships. Each time they reinforce their narrative that relationships are hard to attain, they're drifting further away from the possibility of experiencing authentic human connections. With every click, they're distancing themselves from reality and the opportunity to meet someone who truly complements them and inspires them to become better versions of themselves. What is truly happening in their lives is that they have unwittingly prepared a trap that condemns them to perpetual loneliness. The addiction to pornography looms over them like a shadow, distorting their perception of intimacy and desire. Each click in the virtual realm becomes a brick in the wall they build between themselves and the real world, offering a mere substitute that suffocates the possibility of authentic relationships. Instead of seeking love, they find themselves navigating a sea of ephemeral images, where instant gratification becomes their main emotional sustenance, leaving in its wake a trail of unfathomable voids. This cycle of impersonal consumption not only erodes their interpersonal connections, but also translates into a waste of vital energy. Energy, that essence that constitutes everything we know, is the only reality that exists in the universe. Everything is made of energy, from the particles that form the objects around us to the emotions and thoughts we inhabit. This energy is the only genuine resource we possess, and in nature, everything is oriented toward using it as efficiently as possible to preserve it. However, in surrendering to the addiction to the virtual, these men disperse their energy in superficial interactions that never quench their thirst for authentic connection. Instead of channeling their vitality toward creating emotional and affectionate links with real partners, they waste it in a palace of illusions that will never offer them the satisfaction they desire. Every hour they spend immersed in the faded light of their screens is a minute that will not return, a fragment of their essence squandered in a space that gives them nothing genuine or lasting, and only weakens them as men. The damage deepens even further when discussing testosterone, that crucial hormone that provides them with the spark of ambition and desire, the one that drives them to leave the refuge of their solitude to pursue their dates, goals, and dreams. This substance is not just a biological element. It is the engine that fuels their ability to focus, persevere, and confront the challenges life presents. With each click, their testosterone levels evaporate, and soon they discover that what was once passion has been replaced by paralyzing indifference. Without their vibrant energy, their essence fades, and their masculinity begins to dissolve, leaving behind a void that echoes in the cavities of their being. The depletion of this vital hormone, along with the energy wasted in their failed search for connection, transforms these men into shadows of what they could have been. Instead of seeking new opportunities, they prefer to succumb to the abyss of conformity, continuously justifying themselves as life passes before their eyes like a faint reflection of what could have been. Their commitment to solitude becomes even stronger, convinced that the real world has nothing to offer them. But the truth is that they have closed the doors to their own possibilities, to meaningful encounters, and to authentic connections. Thus, between the light of the screen and the shadow of their solitude, these men find themselves trapped in a vicious cycle. They promise to seek, but their actions show that, deep down, they have abandoned the struggle for real contact, human connection, and the effort for genuine relationships. Instead of applying their energy to cultivate meaningful relationships, they fill themselves with excuses and self-justifications while life slips through their fingers, leaving them increasingly empty, increasingly isolated. The trap they have built themselves becomes their prison, where the echo of their own words resonates in a silence that only they can hear. Ultimately, by wasting their energy in this way, these men are not simply victims of a tragic fate. They are architects of their own fated existence. They have forgotten that time is nothing more than an illusion, a construct that allows us to quantify the movement of energy in the present. The past no longer exists, and the future is just an unreachable dream if action is not taken in the here and now. Everything external that surrounds them, as well as their internal world, emotions, thoughts, physical strength, is energy in motion. By wasting their own vitality, they are rejecting the only reality they truly possess: the opportunity to live fully, to feel, to love, to leave a mark in the present. They have been consumed by the cold light of their screens, forgetting that the warmth of real life, human connection, is the fire that truly nourishes their souls. Thus, it is imperative that they stop wasting their time and energy on empty distractions, those that keep them anchored in a sea of superficiality that contributes nothing to them. Every minute they spend aimlessly navigating an ocean of ephemeral content is a lost moment in the pursuit of a purpose that seems increasingly elusive. Look around you. Every face that crosses your path carries with it a story, a universe of experiences and emotions that long to be shared. However, they choose to immerse themselves in the fog of inaction, mistakenly convinced that the approval of a like on a post can substitute the warmth of a shared laugh or the intimacy of a deep conversation. Do not fall into the trap of believing that your virtual efforts are equivalent to true connections. Online validation will never fill the void left by authentic human interaction. By ignoring the opportunities to grow, to learn, and to share with those around you, you are condemning yourself to a state of numbness. Every excuse you choose to adopt is just another stone in the construction of a wall that isolates you from what you truly need: a purpose, a community, a sense of belonging. Therefore, do not believe or do anything that does not help you move in the desired direction, the one you genuinely long for. Take the reins of your life. Act with determination and clarity. Set concrete goals and seek genuine engagement with the present, as the now is the only moment that guarantees your existence. Step out of that self-imposed prison. Seek the world outside the screens. Embrace what life offers you in every instant, even in the challenges you may encounter along the way. By doing so, you will begin to rediscover the value of human connection, the joy of shared moments, and the profound satisfaction that comes from genuine commitment to yourself and others. Pornography, by leading men to believe they can access whatever they want, leaves them in a constant state of dissatisfaction. Discontent with reality intensifies, as constant access to idealized images suggests that the real world is not good enough. In this way, men become trapped in a spiral where their self-esteem and self-worth are damaged, perpetuating the cycle of insecurity and frustration in relation to their relationships with women in real life. Likewise, it is vital to take into account the context in which we live. The relationships you cultivate and the environments you choose profoundly influence your mental state. Every interaction has the potential to elevate you or plunge you into superficiality. Therefore, it is essential to be selective with the circles you frequent and the activities you choose to pursue. This conscious selection is an act of self-love. Liberating the mind from empty interactions or connections that feed distraction can be a challenge, but it is undoubtedly a path toward a more authentic and enriching existence. The practice of desexualizing the mind and cleaning our inner space of unproductive distractions is not an end in itself, but a pathway toward self-knowledge, concentration, and inner peace. It is a journey that invites us to go beyond the ephemeral, a constant challenge that, when embraced, can offer us a renewed sense of purpose and clarity. Each step we take in this direction reminds us that our true being resides in the stillness of the mind, where wisdom and virtue can flourish unobstructed.